justice for all.
And I ask for the public's indulgence and forgiveness of our beginning after 7 p.m. For the sake of, I'll blame it on the new members getting orientated to being in an executive session. With that, we will move into the roll call by Ms. Barton.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Adams Stafford,
Present.
Ms. Boozer Strother,
Present.
Mr. Briggs,
Present.
Mr. Saran Ruiz, Dr. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Jackson,
Present.
Ms. LaSalle Frazier,
Present.
Mrs. Mickens Murray, Dr. Z. Miller,
Present.
Mr. Murray, Mr. Valentine, Ms. Walker,
Present.
Dr. Miller.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Now we will move to the adoption of the agenda. Board Member Adam Stafford.
Yes, thank you. I would like to move for us to pull item 5.2, presentation of legal fees, into its own space on the agenda. Presently, it's under the consent agenda.
So where do you want to put it?
If you could put it under item 8.1.
Mr. Farrar, are you in agreement with that? Is there, yes.
I don't have any objections to that.
Any questions? It's being moved from a consent agenda position to a non-consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who second? Board Member, it has been moved in second to move the item 5.2 into as item, from being a consent agenda item to a non-consent agenda item. All in, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, Ms. Barton, please.
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Briggs,
Yes.
Dr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Jackson,
Aye.
Mrs. LaSalle Frazier,
Aye.
Dr. Z. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Walker.
I had a question but couldn't get to it fast enough before we started, so I'm going to not vote.
Yes. Did you want us to come back to you, Ms. Walker? Did you put in a vote? So are you abstaining? Okay. So there's, okay, Ms. Barton. Okay, that's what I'm saying, but you have to announce it. So the motion passes. Thank you. So item 5.2 has been moved to item 8.1. With that, we will move back to adoption of the agenda with the amendment. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda for December 8th, 2022?
I move to adopt the agenda for December 8th, 2022 with the amendment.
Second.
It has been moved in second to adopt the agenda for December 8th, 2022. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion carries to adopt the agenda for December 8th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 10th, 2022 board meeting? And since the new members were not in attendance and may not have received those minutes in a timely manner, I'm asking, well, parliamentary, can I ask them or just suggest that they abstain from?
They don't have to vote, but where they will issue the minutes. Because then that's up to them, they don't have to vote.
Okay, you don't have to vote. Okay. So with that, may I have, well, we have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 10th, 2022 board meeting.
They can accept unanimous consent.
Okay.
Unanimous consent.
Does everybody agree with that agreement? Anybody? Okay. So it is with a unanimous consent that the minutes from the November 10th board meeting are approved. Okay, so it's approved. We can move on. Thank you, team. Now we will have our news break.
There's nothing worse than feeling sick when you're not at home, and especially if you're in school. But if you've got a stomach ache and you're in school, what do? Do you call your parents? Do you go to the nurse's office? You can do those things, but you can also now access a telemedicine platform and see a doctor right where you are. For children suffering with an earache, a pain in the back, or just feeling out of sorts, be it at school or at home, relief is no longer days or weeks away. Thanks to a new telemedicine platform called Hazel Health, getting to see a doctor is now as easy as logging on to an iPad. Whatever the hour, the doctor is always in.
It's hard to get into clinics. It's hard to get into a doctor sometimes. Emergency rooms are sometimes the last resort for students, and that is a complicated and not always the best benefit for students overall. So I think the ability to sort of use telehealth and technology to increase access to healthcare is really sort of what we're seeing across the country.
Students long accustomed to visiting the school nurse with their aches and pains will discover the nurse is still a great resource, but also a gatekeeper, ready to connect them to a doctor online.
You a little nervous?
Yeah, I've never done this actually.
Okay.
This is my first time.
Well, so what you're going to do is I'm going to sit you in the room, and you're going to have a private face-to-face office visit with a provider.
To demonstrate that Hazel Health works, a service that is available at no cost to students or their parents, Leonardo, an outstanding and quite healthy student at Charles Carroll Middle School, volunteered to be part of a simulated visit with a Hazel doctor.
Puff out your cheeks. Good. Open up and say, real big. Look up a little bit.
Leonardo's feigned complaints of lower back pain and throbbing headaches were carefully probed by the doctor, who also conducted a thorough nervous system assessment.
Good. Touch your nose with a finger, and then I want you to pretty quickly go back and forth with the camera. Good.
And while a Hazel doctor can recommend treatment, even sending prescriptions to a local pharmacy or recommending the nurse provide medication, Hazel lowers not just pain, but school absences and inconvenience as well.
The provider will be the one who makes the decision whether the child goes home or not. If the child doesn't go home, that means families don't have to come and pick up their children. And if families don't have to come pick up their children, that means their attendance is going to be better. If they're at home and they are feeling sick, they can access the telehealth at home. The providers can give them a note. The providers can then say, go ahead and go to school.
Currently in the middle schools and academies, Hazel will eventually be in all elementary and high schools too, where it will likely get the same reaction as that Leonardo had.
If I'm going to voice my honest opinion, I feel like it's so useful. The reason being is because he's providing medicine, and he's going to inform my parent about the situation. And it's a huge help, like you guys talked about. It's going to help with parenting, transportation, and visits in general, and attendance. So it's super useful, and I'm pretty sure this county should be grateful for what they have.
To register for Hazel Health and find out more about what it can offer to your child, both at school and at home, go to hazel.co/FAQ or call 415-424-4266. They're waiting to hear from you. This is Dave Zarin reporting.
COVID vaccine.
Excuse me, Dr. Miller. Is your mic on? Is your mic on?
I'd just like to reiterate that Hazel has been very helpful to school system personnel. They provided booster shots, and then after you went to, the one I went to was at Morningside, and after that you got a free massage, which was really, really nice, and all of that was free. So I have to thank our CEO and team for the services that they do provide and make available to us as board members, as well as to the employees of this system. Now I will move into item 2.8, the chair's letter, or the chair's report. I got my inspiration for this message from a song by Frankie Beverly and Mays, Joy and Pain. This will likely be the last meeting that I will preside over as chair of the Prince George's County Board of Education. It has truly been an honor to serve the students of one of the largest districts in the state, and I've experienced many joys along the way and in this role. The joy of working with an exceptional CEO as the district transitioned from virtual educational environment back to in-person learning. The joy of participating in the unprecedented groundbreaking of 6 new schools and the grand opening of 4. The joy of being of a school district that saw more than 7,000 students graduate in the class of 2022. Who earned approximately $200 million in scholarship awards and acceptances to hundreds of colleges and universities nationwide. The joy of supporting the climate change focus work group that received national acclaim for its comprehensive and strategic climate change action plan for our school district. The joy of our school district receiving national recognition for its language immersion programs. The joy of working with a CEO who has received national recognition for her leadership. Most recently, she's been named a finalist for the AASA Women in School Leadership Award, which pays tribute to the talent and vision of outstanding women educational administrators in the nation's public schools. However, like the song Joy and Pain by Frankie Beverly and Mays, times of joy are interspersed with times of pain. The pain of a district that faced shutdowns and had to develop new teaching strategies during the global pandemic. The pain of finding enough teachers and bus drivers during a national shortage, in spite of unprecedented recruitment efforts. The pain of misinformation and negative press that often overshadow district success stories. And as Beverly's song's lyrics say, joy and pain are like the sunshine and rain. Over and over, you can be sure there will be sorrow, but you will endure. Where there's a flower, there's the sun and the rain. Oh, and it's wonderful. They're both one and the same, joy and pain. Our students are the flowers, and our leaders and educators provide the sun and rain to nurture them and help them grow into successful young adults. It has been my honor to be a part of this process, and I look forward to hearing of the many future successes of this school district. I know it's heading in the right direction, and thank you for the opportunity to have served. As the chair, I'm not going anywhere yet. So, with that being said, I'd like to move on to a moment of silence. Colleagues and public, at this time I ask that you all join me in honoring the memory of the following Prince George's County Public Schools staff, family, and community members with a moment of silence. Prince George's County Sheriff Melvin C. High. Rosa Diaz Santos, student, Eleanor Roosevelt High School. The CTO Johnson, clerk typist 3, John Carroll Elementary School. Maurice Montgomery, teacher, William Wirt Middle School. Sean R. Whitfield, transportation attendant, Friendly Bus Lot. Doronta Butler, building services, Dr. Henry Wise Junior High School. Nicole Traham, bus driver, Greenbelt Bus Lot. Crystal Laverne Joseph, school secretary, Suitland High School. Cheryl A. Sellers, resource teacher, Dr. Henry A. Wise High School. Michael L. Bird, teacher, Potomac High School. Elizabeth Hester Brown, teacher, North Forestville Elementary School. Please continue to keep these families in your thoughts and prayers. Now, the upcoming meetings of the board. Our next budget work session meeting will be held on January 12th, 2023. The Academic Achievement Committee will meet virtually on December 12th at 5:30 p.m. The Policy and Governance Committee will meet virtually on December 13th at 5 p.m. The Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee will meet virtually on December 14th at 5 p.m. Please check our website for information about upcoming board meetings. Now we will move to item 2.9, the report of our Chief Executive Officer. Dr. Galson, I now yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to begin my remarks tonight by expressing sadness about this morning's incident at Suitland High School. Our prayers go out to the young man who was injured, and we hope for his full recovery. We are committed to ensuring the safety of everyone who walks through our doors, and we will do everything in our control to keep our schools safe safe places for teaching, learning, and working. Many thanks to the Prince George's County Police Department, our Prince George's County Public School security staff, Suitland High School administrators, teachers, and students for their assistance in the aftermath of today's incident. I invite you to join me on Tuesday for a virtual town hall on student safety. All families will receive an automatic call on December 13th to the phone number of record at 6 p.m. Or you can visit the PGCPS website for information on how to dial in. In our ongoing work to support students' academic, social, and emotional needs, teletherapy sessions from home are now available through our continued partnership with Hazel Health and the Prince George's County Health Department. In-school visits for middle schools and students in our academies launched this week, and we will expand to high schools on Monday. Congratulations to our varsity student athletes for their success in state championships. The Bowie Bulldogs soccer team won their championship game, and the Charles Herbert Flowers Jaguars football team made it to the state championship game. a first ever for the school. We are PGCPS proud. School construction updates will be shared next week. We held a virtual update on Suitland High School construction on December 7th, and we'll share updates with families about the new Colin Powell K-8 Academy this evening. Next week, we will focus on the Phase 2 blueprint schools, including Duckworth, Spring Hill Lake Elementary School, Margaret Brent, and Hyattsville Elementary Schools, as well as Brandywine K-8, which will support students from Gwynn Park Middle School, Brandywine Elementary School, and Baden Elementary School, as well as Robert Frost K-8, which will support students from Robert Frost Elementary School, Charles Carroll Middle School, and Carrollton Elementary. Messages were sent to families in boundary schools. As a reminder to our families, the deadline to apply for middle and high school specialty programs and public charter schools is Friday, December 16th. Friday, December 16th. Happy holidays, and this concludes my report. Yes.
Thank you. Next, we will have item 2.10, a progress report from the Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee. Dr. Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to give this unbiased report about the best committee. I'm just kidding. The Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee, or BAFA, has convened monthly since the start of fiscal year 2023. During these meetings, the committee, in conjunction with the PGCPS administration, has discussed, taken action on, and been given thorough presentations on the following topics: OBAFA Committee Fiscal Year 2022-2023 Work Plan, P3 Updates, Summer School Review, FY 2024 Operating Budget, Presentation and Recommendations to the Board regarding the FY 24 Operating Budget Priorities, CIP, Maintenance Review, Fourth Quarter Internal Audit Review, Compensation and Benefits Review, Blueprint Schools Update, First Quarter Internal Audit Report, External Audit Report, School Registration Preview, and the planning of the 4x4 sessions for this upcoming budget amendment cycle process. The OBAFA Committee is on track to complete all of our outlined objectives in our 2022-2023 work plan, and we even added an in-depth presentation from the Interagency Commission on Public Schools Construction regarding the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan and Maintenance Effectiveness Assessment. We are committed to continuing the work of the board as its designated oversight of PGCPS operations and budget. The committee is grateful to have been successful in developing and cultivating a working relationship with the CEO's designated representatives who attend all of our meetings, and I would like to say thank you to this awesome team for continuing to be professional, hardworking, and dedicated to our cause. First, Mr. Michael Hersman, the CFO. Second is Dr. Mark Fawcett, the COO, Ms. Lisa Howe, our budget director, and Dr. Coleman for supporting service. I would also like to thank my fellow committee members, Vice Chair Madeline Sadia Frazier, Dr. Juanita Miller, and David Murray for allowing me to lead. Your collaboration and support are what makes the work easy. This is not just a duty, it is an honor to serve each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Are there any questions of Dr. Harris? Then we will move forward. Hearing none, we will move forward with the Policy and Governance Committee recommendations. In the absence of the chair of that committee, Mrs. Mickens-Murray, board member Boozer Strother, who is a member of that committee, will give the recommendations.
All right, thank you so much, Chair Miller. On behalf of our chair of the committee, Judy Mickens-Murray, I bring forward our policies with a recommendation to seek public comment. The Policy and Governance Committee met virtually on November 15th, 2022, with the following members in attendance: Chair Judy Mickens-Murray, Vice Chair Alvaro Sarum Ruiz, and myself, Pamela Boozer Strother, as a member. The committee discussed the revisions to the following policies. Policy 0104. Purpose of Policy 0104 Title IX is to prohibit sexual harassment and discrimination based on actual or perceived sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression on PGCPS property, and PGCPS activities against students, employees, or applicants for either. Second policy, Policy 0108, Code of Conduct. The purpose of Policy 0108, Code of Conduct, is to clarify acceptable conduct by the members of the board in performing system oversight. The committee voted unanimously to forward both policies to the full board with a recommendation that they be approved by the Board of Education at the December 8th, 2022 board meeting to seek public comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Board Member Boozer-Strother. Now we will move to 3.0, public comment on agenda and non-agenda items.
Do we need the board to send this to public comment?
Oh, yes.
Do we need the board to move on this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to vote then.
Okay.
All right. May I have a motion to send these recommendations out for public comment?
I move to send the Policy and Governments Committee recommendations out for public comment.
It has been moved and second that we send the policy and government recommendations out for public comment. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries with a consensus vote. Now we will move to the public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. Colleagues, we have 5 registered live public comment speakers this evening and no written public comments and no pre-recorded videos. The written, well, we don't have any, so. Now, note to the public comment speakers, you have registered to speak in a public forum where the Board of Education will listen to your comments. The board will not address your comments. You must speak on the topic for which you have been registered. All registered speakers will have 3 minutes to provide comments. At the sound of the buzzer, you may complete that sentence only. Registered speakers may not relinquish any part of their speaking time to another registered or unregistered individual. Speakers may not address individuals or issues with profanity or derogatory terms. You will be warned once. If you continue to, you may be asked to leave the meeting. Speakers are encouraged to use titles rather than names. For example, principal, CEO, deputy superintendent, etc. Your adherence to these guidelines will enable the public participation process to move smoothly. Our first registered speaker for tonight is Amanda White, individual school bullying. Ms. White.
Hello. I'm here to speak about my 12-year-old son. He is an amazing kid. All of his teachers describe him as kind, smart, and very outgoing. Unfortunately, the kids at his school of Stephen Decatur Middle School think otherwise. Because of his passive ways, he has been called names that I'm not allowed to repeat on this microphone. I wish I could say that the bullying stopped at verbal, but the reason why I'm here to talk to you is because it has turned to physical and sexual harassment. My son has had to endure, for the past few months, being pantsed. He has been punched in the stomach. He has had a child wrap their hands around his neck and call him the N-word. My son, all of these incidents were all done in front of teachers, in front of other classmates, and nothing was seen by any teachers. Every teacher went blind to the situation. My son's final act, or most recent act of bullying, was when a child held a pencil to his throat and told him, "I will slit your throat," and another child responded with, "And I'll slit your mother's throat in her sleep." My child went to the proper authorities, and because he was only slapped, the child was suspended but was allowed to sit side by side with my child for the rest of the school day. He was nervous the entire time. He now sends me text messages from school because he has noticed that I worry constantly. Every time that I see his school number pop up on my phone, my heart sinks to my stomach. I have now opened up a case against the child for threatening my son's life with a weapon, And I feel as though the staff and the teachers there all are trying to sweep this under the rug, hoping that it goes away. My child loves school. He enjoys going to school. He stays on honor roll. This is the first year that he's ever not been on honor roll. And it's because he is nervous of when the next attack is going to happen. I just need somebody to at least stand up for my child. That's all.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. It is truly disappointing that certain members of the board continue to use the media to spread misinformation rather than take time to educate themselves of the policies that govern how they operate, such as in the case of the legal fees of the chair. Policy 9354 states that board members are not entitled to reimbursement for personal bills or expenses that are not related to the Board of Education. However, the chair's legal fees are related, being that the chair is a whistleblower. Facts that are corroborated by the former District 6 board member who concurred with the ethic panel's finding and the state board's own independent audit in response to the chair's whistleblower letter of February 2021. Thus, it is reasonable to conclude that the expenses that are related to the Board of Education. Additionally, the policy states that the board financial analyst, the ethic panel, and the chair are the ones that resolve disputes. Last, the chair decides if disputes relating expenses go to the board for a vote. The policy was adopted in 2017 and is available for all board members and reporters to read. If board members disagree with the language of this policy, you have a policy committee and they know how to amend it. You could vote to suspend the rule, but you need two-thirds majority vote. And there's a history that you have not achieved that. Also, since the vote involves board members that filed a complaint resulting in these legal fees as lay citizens using confidential board information they swore oath to keep confidential and not disclose for personal use would vote on this matter, they must, according to Board Policy 017, disclose their conflict before voting. This means they must admit they violated their oath of office regarding the use of confidential board information. In essence, this is a mess. Board members seeking revenge against a whistleblower, the media bias reporting, the state board abdicating its responsibility and not acting on the ethic panel report submitted in June of 2022, yet dismissing valid citizens' complaints. We have legislators just sitting watching this circus and then throwing together HB 355 to pacify voters until after the election. We have a former chair that even said he saw this coming in 2018 who has not spoken up. And board members who are failing to educate yourself on how you should know your policies and laws to responsibly govern yourself. It is time to stop using up our money and wasting our money. We have a CEO that is doing a heck of a job. And thank you for responding, Dr. Golson, about Suitland. I'm a graduate of Suitland. My heart was broken what happened. But y'all need to get your acts together.
I got it. Thank you. I'll try to be brief. It's with a heavy heart that I am up here. Thank you so much for your response in relation to Suitland. When incidents like these happen in our school system, it really does overshadow the great work that's being done. And so we just really want to refocus on that. When we talk about refocusing and moving forward, we need to talk about, the school board, right? We have 3 new elected members. We have somebody that was reelected. And it is time for us to move forward in a different direction. It's time for us to move forward in collegiality, professionalism, and really moving the school district in a way to reform public opinion.
I just wanted to encourage the school board to move forward in that capacity. Hopefully, within a month or so, we can continue to move forward in that capacity because there will be a ruling that will push a new wave forward. That is the hope. Again, we really don't have the time to waste arguing with each other, fussing and fighting, having the public come out and publicly disparage you for your interactions with each other, interactions that are of public record and can be played on YouTube at any time. We have to focus on our students, our teachers, and our parents. And that should be the focus moving forward. And I just wanted to come and encourage you to do so. And yes, if that is not your focus, I'll be back. Thank you.
A previous speaker mentioned HB 355. That's a law that was enacted last April, taking the first steps to return our schools and their administration to the voters of Prince George's County. One of the provisions of that law went into effect on Monday. And that provision removed the power of the county executive to appoint a chair for this board, and says, beginning on December 5th, 2022, the county board shall elect a chair and a vice chair of the county board from among the members of the county board. This means that the Board of Education has been without a chair since Monday. And here we are, it's Thursday. And yet, you still have not elected a chair. So what should you do? Because the chair is the office of chair is vacant and the office of vice chair is vacant. Fortunately, Robert's Rules of Order has a solution. In the absence of a chair and a vice chair, the secretary of the board, the CEO, can call a meeting to order and preside over the election of a temporary chair for this meeting only. And because the law says that you shall elect, beginning on the 5th of December, a chair and a vice chair, the only duty of the temporary chair is to preside over the election of a permanent chair. And that should be your next order of business. Then the permanent chair can preside over the election of the vice chair. You don't have a chair right now. Somebody has to step up and elect a temporary chair to serve for today only, and to preside over an election of your officers as required by law. And I hope that the General Assembly will continue its work to return the board and administration of our schools to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If we can place the presentation on the screen, please. Good evening. It is my pleasure to present the fiscal year 2024 Chief Executive Officer's proposed operating budget. This budget is focused on improving outcomes for all of our students and moving from the pandemic to prosperity. This proposal is fully aligned with the Board of Education's budget priorities. During the first work session on January 26th, we will present details of how closely aligned this budget is to each of your priorities. Each year, I carefully select focus areas to prioritize within the Transformation 2026 strategic framework. For the fiscal year 2024, those areas will continue to include mathematics, school climate, social and emotional learning for students and staff. Let's look at our proposed funding increase at the state and county level. Due primarily to increased target per pupil funding in the Blueprint for Maryland schools, our unrestricted state and county funding will rise by more than $240 million. Federal unrestricted sources are not expected to change, though we are anticipating a decrease in restricted funding in the amount of nearly $100 million as we spend down federal relief grants. Local sources are reduced by $1 million due to a lower volume of facility rentals. Finally, last June, I presented a plan to the Board of Education to use fund balance over the next 7 years in order to sustain the salary increases in the current negotiated agreements. The decrease in the use of fund balance for fiscal year 2024 represents year 2 of that plan. It is important to note that the state and county revenues shown here are preliminary calculations, and the projections may change once the governor releases his budget in January 2023. The most consequential revenue change for next school year is the required county contributions. At the same time that the blueprint increases state allocations to school districts, it also requires larger contributions from county governments. In prior years, counties were obligated to contribute maintenance of effort, we always call it MOE, to schools, which meant that they had to contribute at least the same per pupil amount as the prior year with some adjustments. Beginning last year, counties were required to contribute an amount based on the maintenance of effort and local share. The local share is a wealth-adjusted portion of each state aid formula calculation. For Prince George's County and for most other counties in the state, this amount exceeds maintenance of effort, resulting in higher required county contributions. While this change went into effect for the current year, it was largely offset by the decrease in enrollment during the pandemic. For the 2023-2024 school year, we project that the county will be required to contribute at least $121.9 million more than the current year. However, this number is not final. Subtle changes in blueprint formulas can have a dramatic effect, as well as state aid, as well as statewide wealth numbers, which will not be released until January. When they are released, even a very small change in comparative wealth between Prince George's County and the state as a whole could take us into a different tier on the calculation of state education effort adjustment. That would increase the state requirement by $42.2 million and reduce the minimum county requirement by that same amount. This does not affect the school system's total unrestricted revenue, but will change whether the state or the county is responsible for making that contribution. Now let's look at salary improvements and state requirements. Approximately half of the revenue increase, or $94 million, will go directly to employee raises outlined in our multi-year negotiated agreements. We will invest another $40 million directly in school budgets to account for projected enrollment increases and budget equity across schools. $27 million will be used to meet new state requirements for retirement, paid family leave, and contributions to partner organizations. $38 million will cover items that were removed from the prior budget during last year's reconciliation and must be reinstated. That will be the new state benefit changes and required partner distribution displayed on the screen. $6 million must be used to account for inflation in building maintenance, information technology, gasoline, and utilities. And $10 million is needed to continue and expand our programmatic offerings. Another $10 million will be invested in critical organizational improvements, which I will highlight later in the presentation. These expenditures changes results in an initial fiscal year 2024 budget deficit of $33 million. Throughout my tenure as CEO, we have invested most of our resources in retaining, recruiting, and competitively compensating our employees because we believe that hiring and keeping high-quality teachers and other staff will lead to the best outcomes for our students. My administration has prioritized building trust with our employees as shown in the 3-year negotiated agreements now in place with all of our labor partners. For fiscal year 2024, all eligible employees are scheduled to receive a full step increase and a 4% cost of living adjustment, as well as dozens of compensation improvements for employees in each of our bargaining units. Over the last 5 budget cycles, we have also concentrated on moving funding from central office back to our schools, where we have the most direct impact on students. This year, more than $40 million will be spent on projected enrollment increases, resources for new schools, baseline supports for small schools, and equity standardization of elementary and middle schools. This is a $40 million increase on top of the salary and benefit enhancements for all of our school-based employees. Excuse me. Each year, both the State Department of Education and local counties are required to contribute to the teacher's retirement and pension system. The law changed last year to decrease the state requirement and increase the local obligation. This results in a $13 million increase. Excuse me. The Maryland Time to Care Act was passed in 2022. It will be phased in over 2 years and be fully effective by January 2025. This act, one second, let me take a minute. My CFO was willing to step in, but let me try it again. The Maryland Time to Care Act was passed in 2022. It will be phased in over 2 years and fully effective by January 2025. This act requires all employers in the state to offer paid family and medical leave. We will have the option to either participate in a statewide self-insurance fund or create our own fund to self-insure this obligation. We have set aside $5 million for this new legislation, though specific information is not yet available. The law directs the Department of Labor to issue guidance by June 1, 2023. While this will be a benefit to some employees, it may also be costly to others. This guidance will likely dictate required contribution rates for both the employer and the employee. Beginning in fiscal year 2024, The blueprint requires each school system to transfer $62 per K through 12 student to the county's local workforce development board. For Prince George's County Public Schools, that will be a payment of $7.8 million. The law calls for the Workforce Development Board, the school system, and other state and local agencies and employers to collaborate on implementing a career counseling program for middle and high school students. Beginning this year, $1.5 million of our state pre-K funding will pass through to private providers. Next year, that will increase by approximately $300,000, bringing it to $1.8 million. In order to close the current year's budget and final reconciliation last June, we made early payments in several areas. Other post-employment benefits liabilities, better known as OPEB, and our lease purchase agreements for textbooks, technology, and buses. We also increased the salary lapse projection for a single year to an unstable level. These actions reinstate the necessary funding for fiscal year 2024. Recent inflation rates have remained high in critical operating sectors, including building maintenance, information technology, gasoline, electricity, and other utilities. Together, this inflation is projected to add $6.2 million to the budget request for next year. $10 million will be added to the budget for continuation and expansion of our current programs as listed on the screen. Most of that will go towards expansion of special education services. An additional $10 million will also be budgeted for organizational program enhancements, and I have also displayed that on the screen. All 5 of our early childhood centers are over-enrolled. We are currently at 686 students above the state-rated capacity as enrollment continues to grow and we continue to identify children. Staffing is required for new classrooms to meet the increased capacity need and demand. Right now, we're working to identify spaces that are available for expansion, and the final classroom and staffing numbers may require adjustments to meet the space constraints. And we have allocated $4.7 million for that investment. Over the last 3 years, we have exponentially increased the number of devices and applications available in our classrooms. Schools need more support with maintaining and troubleshooting devices while integrating technology into instructional practices. We will assign 2 new information technology coordinators to each cluster to aid school administrators and educators with technology needs. The blueprint for Maryland schools mandates that all pre-K classes receive and regularly renew their accreditation. This will require up to 42 schools working towards approval and/or renewal. This budget adds staff to work with child care providers as they achieve and renew their accreditation. School climate and social-emotional learning are 2 of the focus areas for this school year as well as next school year. This budget invests in monitoring the juvenile diversion program, improving efficiency of security operations, and standardizing schedules for system-wide 24/7 security monitoring. Closing the $33 million budget gap will require reconciliation. To fully close the unrestricted operating budget deficit, we have made $1.8 million in central office reductions across all departments. We will reduce systemic lapse and reserve accounts, and we will once again issue early payment in the current year towards our annual other post-employment benefit liability obligation. As a reminder, on November 10th, the Board of Education passed a new process that we will use for amendments in the board-requested budget process. The next process has 3 phases. The first one will be board member questions and answers. The second phase is Board of Education amendments, and budget finalization is the third. Throughout these 3 phases and throughout the full budget process, there are opportunities for community engagement. The new process improvements include a budget information session for new board members, which occurred last night, board and administration small group discussions, which will be scheduled soon, publishing the full enhanced timeline, which you will see on subsequent slides, a new amendment template to be released to board members on Monday, December 12th, and discussed during the Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting on Wednesday, December 14th. An OBAFA, which stands for Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee review of those amendments will take place. Administration will comment on those amendments, and a budget work session devoted to the Board of Education discussing amendment proposals will happen. We have highlighted a few key changes in the full process, including the new member board orientation that happened last night, which was a new feature, and the upcoming small group budget discussions, which will be optional for board members. The amendment template completion deadline will be February 3rd, and the work session where the board members will discuss proposed amendments will take place during the February 8th Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs meeting. Then we come to Phase 3. February 23rd is the scheduled adoption of the Board of Education requested budget. Once approved, we will then transmit the Board of Education's requested budget to the county government. We hope to continue hearing from students, families, employees, labor partners, and other members of the community. Over the next 2 months, there are many ways to make your voice heard by the Board of Education and administration through 3 virtual budget hearings. My team and I look forward to working closely with our Board of Education members throughout the remaining budget process. Thank you for enduring when I went through that coughing spell, and I look forward to our budget process. Thank you.
Oh, one mic. Dr. Harris.
Hey, not a question, just a comment. On slide 25, you talked about next steps that board members could take. I'm just really driving home there that you all will get the budget amendment template next Monday, and we've opened up the OBAFA meeting on that Wednesday for you to come in, and Mr. Herbst is going to walk through that template for us. So I'll send you all personal invites, but this is just me publicly saying that you'll also get an invite, and it is next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Harris and to Mr. Hertzman for creating a new budget process that we think will be amenable to everyone involved. Thank you.
Board Member Adam Stafford.
Thank you. This is for Board Member Harris. So if we require some data or information in order for us to make the budget amendment, will that be something that we will request at the individual 4x4 meetings, or who should those be directed to?
So the question is directed to, I guess it's based on what the amendment is, but I mean, I'd say directed to Dr. Golson, include Mr. Herbstman. I
think it's important for you to see the template first because it will require some information, and if you need to gather that information, that's why the time frame from the time you have to submit it and then for us to respond and review back is not like within 2 days.
Yeah, and to further answer the question, the 4x4s are planned for after we go through the template anyway, so you'll have time to kind of look through some stuff.
Any additional comments, concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on to our budget consent agenda item 5.1, the fiscal year 2023 tax exempt municipal lease purchase, financing for the procurement of replacement buses, textbooks, instructional computer. Dr. Golson.
Yes, thank you. Item 5.1 requires board approval of fiscal year 2023 tax-exempt municipal lease purchase financing for the procurement of replacement buses, textbooks, and instructional computers.
May I have a motion to approve item 5.1, fiscal year 2023 tax-exempt municipal lease purchase financing for the procurement of replacement buses, textbooks, and instructional computers?
I move that the board approve budget item 5.1, fiscal year 2023 tax-exempt municipal lease purchase financing for the procurement of replacement buses, textbooks, and instructional computers.
Second.
It has been moved and second that we approve item 5.1, fiscal year 2023 tax-exempt municipal lease purchase financing for the procurement of replacement buses, textbooks, and instructional computers. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There's a consensus vote. The motion passes. The motion passes to approve FY 2023 tax-exempt municipal lease purchase financing for the procurement of replacement buses, textbooks, and instructional computers. Thank you, team. Next, we will go to item 6.0. There are no items for second reader, unfinished business. Now we will move to 7.0, new business for first reader, Parent and Community Advisory Council bylaws.
Thank you, Chair. So as you can see on board docs, we have the revised PCAC bylaws, which are a byproduct of the Parent Community and Advisory Council, their work on updating these to ensure that they're in line with policy and sort of the desire of this committee. Board policy, again, authorizes this group to be formed by the board in order to provide, in an advisory sense, information from the community to the board about important matters to parent and community members. And so I would like to move that we adopt the revised bylaws as they are listed here on board docs. And I just thank you all for your cooperation in helping to get this advisory committee up and running.
Motion to approve item 7.1, Parent and Community Advisory Council bylaws.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second to approve the Parent and Community Advisory Council bylaws. Any discussion? Board Member Harris.
Thank you. Board Member Adam Stafford, is the vehicle for asking questions of the PCAC, is that through individual board members' representatives, or how should we go about asking them questions if we do have them?
For community members to ask PCAC members questions?
For board members to ask.
Board members. Oh, yeah, so the committee meets the first Tuesday evening of every month, and so you all are invited to those meetings, and these are representatives from your district, so please feel free to reach out to them individually. They should be reaching out to you to try to work in collaboration to connect with community members. And so at our next meeting, I'll be presenting the members of the PCAC, and that's a time when you can connect with them and to set up maybe some regularly scheduled meetings.
Thank you. I was also asking questions since we have new board members. I know they have representatives as well, so just putting it out there.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. Did we vote? Let's, may I have a vote? All in favor of approving the PCAP or the Parent and Community Advisory Council bylaws Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries with consensus vote to approve the Parent and Community Advisory Council bylaws. Moving on to 7.2, rescission of policy 4114, school official financial disclosure.
This is 14.
Uh-huh.
7.2 and 7.5 together for governors, I think.
Yeah. You take, yeah.
You're saying for me to go?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, thank you, Chair Miller. On behalf of the Chair of the Policy and Governance Committee, Judy Mickens Murray, I'm going to take the board through 7.2 to 7.5. These are recommendations, these are first readers. And the Policy and Governance Committee met virtually on November 15th, 2022, with the following members in attendance: Judy Mickens Murray, Chair; Alvaro Cerrone Ruiz, Vice Chair; and myself, Pamela Boozer Strother, a member of the committee. The committee discussed the public comments to the following policies. Policy 4114, school official financial disclosure. This is for rescission. Was developed to ensure that each school official files a disclosure statement at times when a potential conflict of interest arises. The current language of 4114 is now obsolete, no longer aligns with relevant laws, policies, and regulations. 7.3, new policy, pedestrian safety plans, provides guidance for the development of pedestrian safety plans. 7.4, policy 0120, system oversight, clarifies the roles of the board and the CEO in system oversight. And 7.5, policy 4112, appointment of personnel, provides guidance for the appointment of PGCPS personnel. The committee voted unanimously to forward all four policies to the full board with a recommendation that they be approved by the Board of Education at the December 8th, 2022 board meeting as first reader. Thank you so much, Chair Miller.
May I have a motion to approve 7.2 through 7.5?
I make a motion to approve items 7.2 through 7.5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It has been moved in second to approve item 7.2, and I'll read them for the record. Rescission of policy 4114, school official financial disclosure. 7.3, new policy, pedestrian safety plans. 7.4, policy 0120, system oversight. And policy 4112, appointment of personnel. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Adam Stafford.
Yes, thank you. On policy 7.3, pedestrian safety plans, I noticed that there is an emphasis on collaboration with the State Highway Association, and this is certainly an issue in my community that I hear all of the time about safe passages to schools. And I was wondering if the policy also was considering collaborating with local police departments as well, or if that is something that you would consider codifying in policy, as they are really at the front lines of supporting often with pedestrian safety. This is for you, colleague Pam Boozer Strother.
Well, this policy is guided by a new state law. Dr. Goldson, would you be able to comment on that?
We made the revisions to the pedestrian safety plan policy so that it could be consistent with state law. In terms of collaboration, when we get community input, you can make a recommendation, but it doesn't mean that it'll change it. What we are doing is making sure that the policy is aligned with the new state rules and regulations.
Okay, I was just thinking it might be a good recommendation to possibly add in that this this plan would also include local police units that are working on the ground with some of these issues as well. And that's just a recommendation, but it's fine as is.
Any additional comments? We'll move for the vote. All those in favor of receiving items 7.2 through 7.5? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes to approve items 7.2 through 7.5. Next, we will move to 8.0, and there is a 8.1. We moved 5.2 for the discussion of fees by our legal counsel. Mr. Farrar, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you so very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Once again, for the record, Bradley Farrar with the Law Offices of Shipley and Horn. I want to discuss just with you all again briefly the issue of the payment of legal fees. That issue has come back. And again, I've been asked to opine as to the appropriateness of paying the legal fees. Certainly, the Maryland Education Article, Section 4-104, allows the payment of legal fees for a board member to pay all or part of the legal fees for the defense of a county board member who is involved in litigation. My mic is on. Who are involved in litigation because of his or her service and in his or her official capacity on that board. In the instance in front of this board that this board has been considering, I think based upon the documents that were provided to the board members, that it's clear that Dr. Miller is being sued because of her service and in her official capacity as chair. As I told you before, and my opinion is that if these fees aren't paid, one, Dr. Miller will probably have grounds to sue this board for payment of those fees. I think the cost of that litigation would be would exceed what you will end up paying. Again, our firm, we would not be in a position to defend this board in this action, so you'd have to get in that action rather, you'd have to get outside counsel. The cost of that, again, would be prohibitive. But again, I just would reiterate to the board, again, that the real issue becomes if you don't do it, then you set a precedence that makes it perilous to serve as a member of this board. That is, if anyone disagrees with what you've done or with your service, they could then initiate this type of proceeding to have you removed, and it makes it almost a issue for this board or member to serve on this board. It makes it very difficult. It makes it perilous. It makes it to the point where you really don't want to do it. So for those reasons, again, I would urge this board to take the necessary action to go ahead and to pay those legal fees. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Adam Stafford.
So, Mr. Farrar, my question is, I'm going to start with my question, and then we can circle back after I make a few comments. You know, the question really is, why would we vote on this recommendation when it is already codified in state law? This is a recommendation to pay fees, and it's not consistent with the law. We are already covered by the Maryland Annotated Code, and basically it states that in your legal defense, the board can vote and they may pay those fees. this is not a vote to pay legal fees. This is a vote to reimburse, and the chair is not being sued. I want to be clear on that. So she has mounted a defense after the state board has recommended her removal. So she's not being sued. She's mounted a defense and has extended an appeal of a state level decision that she initiated. So there is a distinct difference there. And really, you know, this payment that was made, we're asking to reimburse for this payment. And this payment was made unbeknownst to the board, which again, I am very, you know, disappointed that we're continuing to have this conversation about, you know, the administration paying for legal fees outside of a board vote. We would not have known that these fees were paid had it not been for a Freedom of Information Act. And so this was done in a clandestine way. And so, you know, an individual member, I also want to implore you that an individual member cannot compel payment. The law specifically says that the board should vote, and the board may or may not determine to pay these fees. And what I'm worried is that we will set a legal precedent within the board that essentially gives someone a blank check, because we're saying to pay all legal fees, and we have no idea what the fees will be in the future. And so that's why it's incumbent upon us to, again, go by what the law already says, and that it already governs this board and covers us. It states that the county board may pay those fees. It doesn't say that they will pay, it doesn't say that they will retroactively reimburse people for fees that have already been paid for an individual member that is not being sued. So that is the difference here. And so, you know, I think that these recommendations are a bit misleading for our colleagues, and if you could just clarify, and if other colleagues have thoughts on this, I would love for them to speak as well.
Thank you for that, Board Member Stafford Adams. So first of all, what I'd like to do is just first kind of correct one thing that's not quite clear and not quite the case. So Dr. Miller isn't being sued by the state board. She's actually being sued by board members. So they're board members who have brought the charges against her, and they are named as individual members who are prosecuting the case. So it's not the state that's actually prosecuting the case, as you know. It's actually these board members, and so it's not the state board. So we need to be very clear as to what really is going on. Okay. So given that it's not the state, that it's actual board members who are doing it, and it's related to work that she did as the chair of this board related to her responsibilities, I think it becomes an issue, as you noted, under Maryland Education Code 4-104, that this board may pay those fees. And so the reason why we're having this discussion is because it is fully within this board's responsibility to either decide that it's going to pay those fees or not pay those fees. If they were retroactive or future payments, this board has to make that determination under that statute that you cited. And so given that, and given the reality of the situation that this board is facing, again, the question to us was, well, what should we do? And so, again, my recommendation to the board is to pay the legal fees, in essence to avoid costs, additional legal costs that will more likely, should you not pay, that will more likely than not come down the line.
Any further discussion? Dr. Harris?
Thank you. Mr. Farrar, can you note where the funds would come from if we were to vote to pay? I do not know where the funds would come from. Sir, no, I don't know. Do we know if there's a ceiling,
A ceiling in terms of,
like a cap amount?
I didn't.
So sorry, I'll rephrase the question. So you said that you don't know where the funds would come from if we voted to pay for it. So that also implies that we don't know what the maximum payment we would be able to make is.
I don't know what the maximum payment is going to be for this. I am under the impression and the understanding that this litigation is near completion. So whatever the costs have been, again, the board has paid approximately $32,000. Let's just say that the board, if there's another $32,000 in cost.
So, okay, thank you for that. That provides clarification. The additional point of what I'm asking is, within the policy that we're following, does that imply that if a board member is sued, then there's essentially an infinite amount of money until that litigation has been resolved?
So what the statute says is that those costs may be paid by the board.
So would it be that a dollar amount was agreed upon by the board, or is it just until completion?
The board can. It says the board may agree to pay all or a part.
Okay.
That's what the statute says.
Okay. Thank you.
Board Member Jackson.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of questions myself. So the first question I have is, when was the first payment made? Who authorized the payment, and was that person operating in their full capacity to pay?
As I understand it, the payment was made. There were two payments that were made, and those payments were authorized by the vice chair of this board to be paid. And as my understanding is, the total approximately $32,000.
And my follow-up question was that person operating in their full capacity, or in their authority to make the payment?
Again, my understanding is that it was made by, the authorization to make the payment was made by the vice chair. And she was operating in her capacity as a vice chair.
Okay, thank you.
19. Briggs. Board Member Briggs.
Thanks for recognizing me. My question to the council is just, when a board member, seeks legal counsel, there's obviously varying rates that they can pay. And so in this incident, when the board member sought counsel, are we sure that the rate that she chose was, the most reasonable of rates based on different, I'm not sure how this works, but so hopefully you can clarify, if she chooses to seek counsel, obviously there's varying rates. So can you clarify just for us, whatever we would be paying as a board, if the rate that she chose was the most reasonable, or is there information on, how that decision was made?
So I don't have the agreement in front of me, so I don't know what the rate was, the hourly rate that was paid. What I can tell you is that all attorneys, they set reasonable rates. Then they're actually kind of based. The reasonableness is based upon years of experience. And other factors. So I don't know what the hourly rate on this particular retainer was, so I can't tell you what it was.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think my larger question is just, as a board member is seeking counsel, what does the law say around how they should determine that selection, and then also being mindful of the dollar amount as it pertains to the board, not overspending. So is there anything in the law that kind of gets to that?
So what the statute doesn't specify rates. What it says is that the board members are entitled to counsel, and that this board may decide to pay. The board has the obligation to decide to pay either all or part of those legal fees in defense of that board member. And that's, again, Education Article 4-104.
Okay, thank you.
The chair has stepped out. Has number 3 gone? It was 3. And 16 was, I'm sorry, 16 is
Lolita.
Board Member Walker.
Thank
gets
you.
to go next.
Thank you so much for your report. My question is, can you confirm that the longer that it takes for our board to make a decision on moving forward, that we are incurring additional costs?
Well, I can't say that the board necessarily is incurring additional costs by not coming to a decision, but what I can say is that the additional costs that the board would be incurring would be related to not making a decision to pay the fees, because what will happen is, again, Dr. Miller will have the responsibility and the obligation and the right to pursue the board in order to, force the board to essentially indemnify her for this action. So, if it gets to that point, the board will be spending more money retaining counsel, because again, we wouldn't be able to defend this board in that action. So you'd have to get outside counsel to do that.
Thank you for your
what the cost
clarity.
will be. Okay, thank you.
Board Member Adam Stafford.
Yes, so Dr. Miller, if you felt that the board should pay your legal fees, why did you do this without a board vote? Why did you and Vice Chair Sonia Williams compel the school system to pay for this without a board vote? Because I believe that at the time, you all realized that this was not something that the board would approve. You were seeking to extend and appeal a decision for your removal from the state board, which is optional. So that is the distinct difference here. And I mean, along the lines of my colleague Jonathan Briggs, he asked, work costs compared. If you note, you have 2 lawyers. This, if we were going to even consider this, where was any due diligence done to determine what would be the best course of action? I mean, honestly, what we should be talking about is the fact that this was a payment that was made unbeknownst to us as a board, and it really was fraudulent. We did not, as a board, agree to pay this. We're talking about doing something retroactively. For future reference, if there was any litigation against us personally, colleagues, that's what the state law and the board policy states, is that we would bring it before the board, and the board would vote, and then they would determine if they would pay it. So, I mean, I just want to drive those points home and see if Dr. Miller will answer that question that I asked initially.
I will respond in this way because the case is, excuse me. So don't respond then. Thank you. So with that, the chair would like to make a statement. There's no fraud involved in this. That is a statement made by the board member previously, and there's nothing to indicate that there's any fraud. It should be known to the new board members that when the first set of charges or allegations were made by board members, they failed to adhere to policy because they did not sign affidavits, and the case was dismissed. We did not have legal counsel at this time either. We did not have legal counsel, nor did we have a parliamentarian. And the leadership reviewed the policy that governs getting legal counsel under a certain dollar amount. Well, there was no one legally to guide us in how to move forward with paying these fees. They would have been stopped. However, after a February 2022 meeting, I think it's 22, board member Shayla Adams and a group resubmitted those charges. There were 35 charges, and the state board threw out 33 of them. 2 of them were still, that's where we're in litigation now. Yes. She is. I never took it back when she was, okay. Oh. Huh?
It was not made vice chair for this meeting. Should we make a, you're right, she did. Understood.
Okay. So we need to change. Huh?
Dr. Miller still has the floor, correct?
And to conclude, continue my recitation on this issue, it appears that the board members, new ones especially, older, regular, anyway, seem to be concerned about costs. Well, there is in our budget a line item, and Mr. Hertzman, you're here, there's a budget item for legal fees for this board, am I correct? Yes, Dr. Golson. And with that, we have a procurement process that we follow. And that process was followed because the first invoice was under the $25,000 fee. The chair is responsible for signing all invoices, contracts, etc. And all the contracts and invoices do not necessarily come to this board for approval. As I had indicated earlier, that I sign off on those contracts and invoices. And there are various other invoices that come in that are not brought to this board for approval, that the chair is given that authority. Now, in terms of the cost of an attorney, I can't get into that in terms of the fact that I selected an attorney to defend me because of the timelines placed on the allegations and responding to those allegations. We did not have legal counsel. We did not have, this board did not, and the data is there to verify my statements. We did not have a parliamentarian. As a matter of fact, at that point in time, we had an RFP out for legal counsel. And with that, when but going back to the charges by the state, the invoice came in. I could not sign it because it was about me and it would have been unethical, and the vice chair took it through the procurement process. There was nothing illegal done. There was nothing fraudulently done. And that miscommunication really brings question to this whole board and its integrity in terms of how we operate. So with that being said, and I can't discuss and won't discuss any more about the case, but the bottom line for the new members who have not read the allegations that board members put against the chair, I had, as a respondent, I had to had to respond to their allegations. And as I said, there were 35. And as a remainder, after the state went through those, there were 32 left. Then the complainants or the petitioners filed another complaint for, I don't know whether it's considered a complaint, but they filed a summary judgment. That prolonged the case because then the attorneys had to go in and defend the fact that defend the summary judgment. That was dismissed. So currently,
Dr. Miller, you'll have to use another round.
that's okay. I'm through because I don't want to say any more. But this isn't about anything that is outside of our policies and the authority of the chair.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. And Dr. Grant, I may call upon your parliamentarian assistance here. I believe we've had at least 2 rounds. The remaining light is Board Member Shayla Adams Stafford, who I believe this is more than the second round. Do we have a limited number of rounds for this discussion? Do any other board members, the lights need to come on for this? There's still just one light on. And this is on the floor for any board member to make a motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
They can move the motion, whether or not they want to vote on it or move to postpone until another day to accept the attorney's recommendation.
I move that.
To second, to remind you, to second does not mean that you agree. It's just that you wish to move forward with it.
So the motion on the floor requiring a second is to accept the recommendation of the attorney to pay the legal fee, all legal fees for the litigation that the chair is involved in. If you would like to help correct that, I'm welcoming that.
Please take the, all in favor.
Has there been a second?
There has been a second.
Mr. Jackson?
Okay. Well, I guess my motion would be to table it.
The motion has already failed. What you can do at another time, if you're going to bring it back, this one in a different manner, if he presents a different way. But the motion has failed at this time. You've already voted, no one seconded, the motion failed. There is no more discussion on this matter at this time.
Motion to request additional information if that's what you're attempting to seek.
Yeah, I would like additional information. I'll make a motion to.
I move.
I move.
Yes.
To request additional information on this topic. Thank you.
We'll provide you with that information. I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
There's a motion,
Is
so
there,
there needs to be
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay. There's a second by Board Member Walker. Discussion? I'm going to clear the lights so everyone can start over. There's discussion. No lights are on. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any noes? Any other recusals from this vote? Please note that Dr. Harris.
I recuse myself.
And Board Member Adam Stafford. Then I'll need a roll call, is what you're saying. Then a roll call is needed, is what you're saying.
You can do a roll call. Ask her to do a roll call.
The vote is to, for the motion made by, for request of additional information on topic 8.1, presentation of legal fees. I request a roll call. Ms. Barton?
Mrs. Adam Stafford,
Abstain.
Ms. Boozer Strother,
Aye.
Mr. Briggs,
Aye.
Dr. Harris,
Abstain.
Mr. Jackson,
Aye.
Mrs. Osalie Frazier,
Aye.
Dr. Z. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Walker,
Aye.
Dr. Miller. We have 7 ayes and 2 abstentions.
Motion carries, or motion fails with the number tonight? Does 7 carry tonight? All right, motion carries.
Motion what?
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to return the chair seat to Dr. Miller.
Now we will move on to 9.0, follow-up items. Follow-up items will be posted in board docs. Now we will move to item 10.0, motion to confirm actions taken in executive session. To receive a report from the CEO, to discuss approved personnel appointments, to receive a report from internal audit, to receive an update on labor negotiations, to discuss personnel and administrative matters, to receive legal advice regarding pending litigation. And for the sake of the new members, what this confirmation is what we discussed in closed session. These are the topics, and you are confirming that these were the actions we took in executive session. So may I have a motion to confirm these actions taken in executive session on December 8th, 2022?
Make a motion to confirm the items discussed in executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second to confirm actions taken in executive session on December 8th, 2022. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Or is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries to confirm the actions taken in executive session. 11.0. A motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. It has been moved in second to adjourn December 8th, 2022 board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And just a reminder that there will be a meeting, a special meeting of this board on next Thursday. Next Thursday virtual, we will have oral argument and from 5 to 7, and on from I guess 7:30, Mr. Newsom.
7 p.m. 7 p.m. The meeting will begin.
For the special meeting.
The special meeting will begin in public. Yes.
It's okay.
So Pam, we're not allowed to talk to other topics.
Excuse me, our legal counsel is asking a question.
I was talking to other board members.
Responsibility to attend the meeting. Oh, you need extra dates?